The phone call came late at night. The kind that makes your heart skip a beat, not because of excitement, but because you know something's wrong. "Jenna, it's your dad, he's gone." The voice on the other end was strained, barely holding it together. It was her brother, Mark. I'm so sorry. "He passed away this evening." The words felt unreal, like they belonged to someone else's life. Jenna had been prepared for this moment in some way. Her father had been ill for years, but no one had prepared her for the deep ache of losing him, especially when the goodbye had never been said. Her dad, Henry, had always been a man of few words. Strong, silent, and proud. He didn't do emotions, or at least not the kind of emotions Jenna needed. Growing up, Jenna had often wondered if he loved her. Not because he didn't show it, but because his love was always buried under layers of stoic silence. There were no hugs, no "I love yous," just the quiet comfort of his presence. And now, in this moment of finality, she realized that the words she had always needed from him, those simple, reassuring words, had never come. Not even when the end was near. Jenna sat in her car for a while, the keys still clutched in her hand, the world outside moving without her. She could hear Mark's voice again, the words clear in her mind. "We should have said goodbye." But how do you say goodbye to someone who never let you in? How do you mourn someone who was always so distant, even when you needed him the most? She could feel her chest tightening as tears welled up. Maybe it wasn't the loss of him that hurt the most, but the loss of the possibility. The chance to reconcile, to finally bridge the distance between them. It was too late for that now. The funeral was held a few days later. The small chapel was filled with people who had known her dad over the years, but none of them seemed to know him the way Jenna did, or at least the way she thought she did. Everyone spoke of him with reverence, their voices laced with admiration for the quiet strength he had always shown. Jenna's throat tightened as she listened, the weight of the unspoken words hanging in the air. Her mother, always the emotional one, cried quietly in the front row. Mark stood beside her, his face stoic as he kept an arm around their mother's shoulders. And then there was Jenna, standing in the back of the chapel, feeling like an outsider in her own grief. She didn't know where she fit in all of this. When it was time to approach the casket, Jenna hesitated. She had never been able to bring herself to do this before, and even now, she wasn't sure if she could. But as she stepped forward, something shifted. It wasn't just the sorrow, it was the realization that this was the last time she would ever see him. Her hand trembled as she touched the edge of the casket, her eyes locked on his face. He looked peaceful, as if he were just sleeping, as if at any moment he would open his eyes and say something sarcastic, something that would make everything okay. But there were no words, just silence. Jenna closed her eyes, pressing her forehead against the smooth wood. And then she whispered the words she had wanted to say for so long. "I love you, Dad. I always have." Her voice broke with the weight of the unspoken years, the pain that had been locked away for too long. "I'm sorry we never got the chance to say goodbye." For a moment she thought she felt something, like a small weight lifting off her chest. Maybe it was just the release of years of pent-up emotions, or maybe it was something more, something spiritual. But whatever it was, it gave her a sense of peace. In that moment she realized that it wasn't too late. It wasn't too late for her to say goodbye, even if he couldn't hear it. As Jenna stood in the quiet of the chapel, the weight of her emotions slowly faded, replaced by a calm understanding. She couldn't change the past, couldn't undo the silence, but she could carry her father's memory with her in a way that felt right. She didn't need him to speak those words. She had said them for both of them. Later that evening, Jenna found herself back at the old family home, the house that had always felt like it belonged to her father more than anyone else. It was a quiet, lonely place now, filled with the echoes of a life that had once been. As she sat down in his favorite chair, the one by the window where he had spent countless hours staring out at the horizon. She closed her eyes and breathed in deeply. And for the first time in a long time, Jenna felt a sense of closure. It wasn't perfect and it wasn't what she had imagined, but it was enough. She wasn't sure if she would ever stop missing him, or if the ache would ever completely fade. But she knew that this was the goodbye they never said, spoken in the quiet of her heart, where the words had always lived. And for that, Jenna felt a small, bittersweet comfort. If you like this story, please like and share and subscribe the channel for next video. See you in next video. Stay happy.